I'm Frank Kimbler. My official work title is Assistant Professor of Earth Science at the New Mexico Military Institute. I've been in Roswell since 2009. I have to plug NIMI. NIMI is a wonderful school. If you want your, for high school and college, you can go through that place for 6 years. If you want your kids to learn about leadership, learn about respect, learn about time management, learn discipline. It's not, it's not a reform school, okay? But they learn some things that they're not going to get in the public school system. And not only that, the professors and teachers that are there are some of the best in the business. And I know that for a fact. So we always get high ratings, and they are awesome. They're a great group of people to work for. And unlike public schools, the students, when they're there, they are our kids, and we treat them like our kids. Yeah, it's a little rough, all right, because it's a military protocol, that's what it is, but you know what? They're ours, they're our family. We take care of them while we're there. We want them to learn. So, got to plug that. So anyway, I teach Earth Science, Assistant Professor of Earth Science. I teach Earth Science on the high school side, and then I also teach on the college side. Wonderful thing. So, I came out to Roswell 2009. It was probably a good, maybe, 6 months or more before I even went down to the UFO Museum. I'd always had an interest in UFOs. I saw one when I was traveling across the United States here in New Mexico. It was kind of an interesting experience. Not up close, it was far away, but I knew it was a UFO because it made right-angle turns and zipped across the sky. So that pretty well convinced me. And I'd always been interested in things like this. So I get out here, I go to the UFO Museum, I walk through it, and I'm going, you know what? This is really cool. We've got lots of eyewitness accounts, lots of testimony from people. No physical evidence, nothing you can touch and hold and feel. So I started reading all of the documentation and watching all the movies and everything, and then I found out where the debris field is. And started using some of my science to try to find some artifacts. So some of this is stuff that I have found, some of it is other things. I have earned, and I don't have any books out. One of these days I'll write a book. I've been featured on a lot of documentaries. It's the Discovery Channel, National Geographic, the History Channel. They've all covered little bits and pieces of the story. One of the comedy things, it was, who's the cable guy? What's his name? Larry the Cable Guy. That was really a fun thing. That was not a very serious thing, but when he came out here, so I did a little thing with Larry the Cable Guy. It was really funny. It was when he was here. It was kind of fun. It was called Larry Goes to Space or something like that. It was absolutely hilarious. Especially when they pulled the guy from off the street, had him come in to look at stuff. That was really funny when they did that. And then probably one of the more interesting things was when Ozzy Osbourne came out here. I spent 2 days filming with Ozzy Osbourne and his son out at the crash site and at the museum. Wonderful person, has a really awful, I think he only knows 2 words, and it all starts with F. I'm going, okay. And his son Jack, kept telling me, he said, Dad, you just need to cool the mouth because I don't like that. He doesn't like the way his dad cusses, just really doesn't. And like I said, he only has 2 words, and they're all begin with the letter F. Marvelous people, really a lot of fun, and watching the video or watching the show when it came out, it was part of his world detour with his son, because his son's really sick, so he wanted to spend some time and go around, and his son Jack is really interested in UFOs when they come to Roswell. And it was really funny as they're driving down the road, and so Don Schmidt and I were taking them out to the debris field. So while they're riding in their vehicle, and this cracked me up, Ozzy looks over at his son, he says, you know what they're going to do? He says, and you hear this bleep, because that's his F words, he says, they're going to bleep us out into this place, we don't know them, and then they're going to bleep and kill us. All right, so I'm going, oh great, and I'm going great. So it was, the whole thing was really funny. So anyway, so much for that little experience, and they are fine people, and they're really nice to work with. You know, it's kind of interesting because it scared the daylights out of me. I'm in the museum and doing some filming with them, and when they were walking down this, when everybody found out that they were here in town, of course he's really famous, and people, we had the doors locked. People were pressing against the glass, and it was like some kind of weird, surrealistic, like vision of the Earth when it's like overpopulated or something. And I'm going, they're going to break the glass and come in here and mob him and tear his clothes off, and they're going to kill me in the process. We had people, and I heard this, we had people trying to come in the back doors, which were locked. We had people climbing up on the roof of the museum, trying to come in from the roof just to see him. And I'm going, this is absolutely insane. I'm going, oh my gosh, this is crazy. But it was a fun experience, it really was. Would I do it again? Yeah, I think that was a blast. All right, so let's talk about this thing called the quest for physical evidence, which is, you know, I got my little clicker here. I've been wandering on, I'm going to run out of time. Clicker, clicker, clicker. Here's my clicker. And my laser. Here's my laser. Yay! Laser works. All right. So, Roswell crash site. You know, I'm not going to tell you the story about the Roswell event. Most people know it. They know the story and what happened here or out at the crash site. So this is from the Roswell movie from Lionsgate Film. With any crash site, and I've been to other types of crash sites. I've been to the Broken Arrow hydrogen bomb thing that was outside of Albuquerque, which is interesting because that's scattered stuff over a good square mile, and there's still pieces laying all over the place out there, even though it was top secret and they supposedly cleaned it all up. Really interesting thing is, if that thing would have detonated when it hit the ground, there would be literally a crater where Albuquerque is. It would cease to exist on this planet. But luckily, they had all their little safety things, and it just fell out of the plane and hit the ground, and basically it broke up. Actually, the detonator, the thing that shoves, that initializes the explosion, that's the part that blew up, but not the weapon itself. So the weapon wasn't armed, but the initiator detonated, and it scattered stuff everywhere. So it was, and I've got pieces of that, so I've actually have pieces of that here in the case. I'm just going to show it to somebody, just to prove that you can still find stuff after the government has gone in and cleaned everything up, which is what this talk is all about. So this kind of depicts like a fictitious debris field, crash site with the gouge and pieces of metal laying all over the place. This is a modern day crash site. So this is the crashed A-12 super secret spy plane, 1963. There was debris, that's all of this stuff here, scattered, oops, got to back up here. Scattered all over the place, pieces like this. This one, German Wings Alps crash, 2015, basically hit the Alps and disintegrated. Everybody on board died. But all of these tiny little white pieces that you see scattered all over this hillside, pieces of an aircraft. So the idea here is that when something goes down or when something blows up, there are pieces laying in every place, and it would be virtually impossible to clean it all up. I don't care how good they are. All right, so according to the eyewitness accounts, what was found on the Foster Ranch, which is the debris field? Well, according to the people that were out there, Mac Brazel, Jesse Marcel, numerous other people that have been interviewed that have seen this stuff and held it and stuff. There was some plastic-like material that was found. Brittle, brownish black plastic stuff resembling bakelite. Some of you may not be old enough to know what bakelite is. I used to have some of it. We had some around the house when I was younger, and I remember it. It's it's the stuff that they make. It's phonograph record material is essentially what it looks like. It's just kind of a black plastic. Some of the very first plastic that we used to make things out of. There was a great deal of an unusual parchment-like substance, which was brown in color and extremely strong. Jesse Marcel Jr., who I spent some time with him. In fact, he passed away just a few weeks after I took him out to the debris field. He rode in my four-wheel drive. It was a wonderful opportunity to talk to somebody at a young age when he was 11, 12 years old. He held the stuff in his hand. And medical doctor, colonel in the Air Force, been over to the Middle East, over there, an amazing man to talk to, and I believe his story that he held this stuff in his hand, and I let him, he looked at the stuff that I had except for the plastic. He says, this looks a lot like what I saw when I was little. That's all he said. That made me feel good. So he basically describes some small black plastic-like stuff, thicker than foil and much stronger. Years later, he said it resembled bakelite. So that's just part of that. Also, we have the metallic stuff. Tough, flexible, foil-like material with memory. This is an artist's kind of conception on what this stuff looks like. However, it was more than likely similar to this, which is really cool. Like that? Isn't that cool? That's kind of neat stuff. And no, that's not from the crash site. If it was, I would be famous beyond all belief, and history would be changed. This is our stuff. It's nitinol. It's called room temperature. It's a nickel titanium alloy. Some people say that it's an offshoot of the back engineering of the Roswell craft, but it's a nickel titanium alloy. No, it's not floating in my hand. It's just the shadows that make it look like that. Really cool stuff. It's kind of neat. I've got a little, this thing, after you play with it about 5,000 times, it started getting kind of cracks and holes in it and stuff. It would still unfold, but it was getting dangerous because it was cutting people's hands up and stuff. So I just cut it into 4 pieces, and it still sort of unfolds. It's kind of cool. Just not as neat as this stuff. So this is our stuff. But it is kind of a neat thing. So, also, most of the debris, now this stuff is from the eyewitnesses. Most of the debris consisted of metal foil. It was kind of like a dull aluminum on each side. Most of the debris looked like pieces of an aircraft airframe or skin, thick foil-like, kind of metallic gray. This guy, General Exxon, highest ranking military officer to come out and say directly that Roswell was the crash of a spacecraft. He changed his story later on because he was starting to get paranoid. Now, as far as I know, he was at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and he didn't work directly with the Roswell stuff, so the comments that he made, like this one, were secondhand. It came from people that he knew, that he worked with there. And basically, he said some of the material could easily be ripped or changed. Other parts were very thin, but awfully strong. This is comments that he made. And so it was kind of an interesting story, including, he didn't mention the I-beams, but this is kind of a facsimile of the I-beam that Jesse Marcel found, which was a kind of a metallic-looking thing with writing on it. He saw that at a young age. In fact, they're actually selling these at the, Jesse Marcel Jr. has these at his desk, and so you can buy one of them. I want one, but they're $30 a piece, but they are kind of cool. All right, so did the military get it all, and did they cover up all the proof? I don't think so. This is also taken from the movie Roswell. Supposedly the story is they crisscrossed it on their hands and knees, and basically if it didn't move, they were told to pick it up and bang it. That's what they were told to do. So they did this for days out there, crisscrossing back and forth, trying to get every single piece of this. But you got to understand, this was also, it happened during one of our wonderful, like the storm we had last night. It happened during a rainstorm. That stuff's going to get washed into holes. It's going to get covered up, and they're not going to find the stuff. It's impossible to pick up everything. And people, Bill Brazel's, Mac Brazel's son, later years riding on horseback after rainstorms, picked up pieces of material, put it in a cigar box, and filled it up literally, and he was bragging about it at the bar in Corona, and the military got wind of it, and they came and confiscated the box. But he continued to find stuff year after year, and the military would come back in periodically to the crash site and try to, until it just sort of died down when they figured there was no more left. But kind of an interesting thing. All right, so the real physical evidence. So much for what the eyewitnesses say. So what's been found? 2002, 2006 archaeological dig that was funded by the Sci-Fi Channel. Don Schmidt talks about this quite a bit. There's some wonderful posters in the UFO Museum, some nice pictured history of what that project did, what they worked on. They had an archaeologist, guy's name was Dolan from University of New Mexico. He headed up the project, funded by the Sci-Fi Channel. Guys, they dug out hundreds and hundreds of pounds of samples. Basically, right where the eyewitnesses said this thing came down, right in the middle of this debris field. All of the bigger pieces that they could pick out with their hands were identified. There's a wonderful document which you can order from the University of New Mexico that outlines all the work that they've done in color and detail. So you can buy it, and I'll show you how to get access to that. So there was a fantastic collection of samples. This stuff has never been analyzed. All right, so it was put in bags. It was sent back to Roswell under armed guard. They made a big TV spectacle out of it. They brought this stuff in, sealed it in a vault here in Roswell, and a couple of years or a year or so went by, whatever. Don gets a telephone call. He says, you know, how can we save this stuff? Apparently somebody wanted to check on it. They checked on it, and some of the bags are paper. So probably a bad thing to store damp soil samples in. The bags broke and some of the stuff was on the floor, so they vacuumed it up, put some of it back in the bags. But anyway, it was all hauled back to controlled conditions up at the Maxwell Museum, University of New Mexico, Archaeological Department. That's where it sits there now. Sci-Fi Channel ran out of money. Nobody's looked at this stuff, and it's just sitting there. They won't let you touch it. It's tied up in government, Bureau of Land Management. It's tied up with the state of New Mexico. Sci-Fi Channel doesn't have a claim to this. It's government stuff. They say, and I briefly spoke to some people that are not high up, but they said, yeah, you know, you can go in and do this. If you have official credentials and research things, then you can get access to this stuff and probably do work on it. I should do that and make a great project for my college students to work on this stuff. It'd keep them busy for a while. But this is, it's unprocessed. However, they did find an intriguing piece of stuff, and this was Chuck Sikowski, Debbie Ziegelmeyer, that's his sister. They found an intriguing specimen, and I spoke to Chuck about this. I was actually part of, I didn't do the analytical work on this, but I was at the lab that did the analytical work. It was done by Bigelow Aerospace. And they've got, it was Hal Puthoff's, look his name up, Hal Puthoff. Been nominated 3 times for a Nobel Prize in physics. Does all kinds of black op things for the government, worked on all kinds of weird projects, ultra top secret clearance and all this kind of stuff. Probably the wrong people you want to look at this stuff. But his lab is called Earth Tech in Austin, Texas. Anyway, this was material they found. It was plastic metallic kind of material. It's kind of weird because you could kind of unfold it and kind of fold back up. It acted, and it was thin. You could like almost see through the stuff. It was pretty wild. Anyway, an alien polymer. Polymer is thin plastic. Or is alien polymer alloy, or is it duct tape? Well, Chuck got permission to get the sample and have it analyzed under scanning electron microscope. Has the ability to pick elements out. And yeah, it was full of aluminum, it had some silicon, some magnesium, some traces of titanium in there. Very interesting. Didn't pick up the organic section. Now this is what the Bigelow people said, because I was there. They said, you know, Chuck Sikowski, and I said, yeah. I said, well, we think the sample's probably duct tape. That's what they said. And I got the report. I got a copy of the report. The report said the following thing. They said it looks like it might be duct tape. We don't know for sure. Yeah, it's got some aluminum in it. Yeah, it's some kind of weird polymer of some kind. And then they go on to say there are so many polymers on Earth that we can't identify. We don't know what it is. So other than the fact that we assume that it's duct tape, and I've got that report. It needs more testing. it would be very easy to figure out what this is. You take a piece of duct tape, real duct tape, you analyze it, you compare it against this and see if it's the same stuff. It's that easy to do. It hasn't been done yet, as far as I know. And that was verified by Chuck, I believe, because he was sitting in the audience when I've done this. So it needs some more testing. I have some pieces that look similar to this with me today. Not exactly like this, but what I did was I took some duct tape and deglued it and defibered it, and you can see through it. It's metallic. It's kind of cool. You can wad it up and unfolds. It's kind of wild. Looks very similar to this, but it may not be. I don't know. And in all of this stuff, you're going to find out that a lot of this physical evidence that we have, nobody spends the time or the money to get all the required tests done to figure out what this is. It's real expensive to do this. And most of the people, I'm one of the few bona fide, honest-to-God scientists that look at the physical stuff, all right? There's not very many. I think you'd probably count them on one hand, the people that actually are scientists that know a little bit about the scientific process and how to do this. Some of them blow things out of proportion. Some of them are really, really good scientists that sort of sit by the side. They don't write any books. They don't flaunt anything. That's what I do. I don't write any books. I just try to deal in the pure science side of it as best I can. All right, so this is what the Roswell dig is. It's there. It's this book. It's called Archaeological Testing and Geophysical Prospection. I love that. At the reported Foster Ranch UFO impact site, full of color pictures, nice reports. You can buy it. It's done by William Dolman. He was the archaeologist that did that, Bill Dolan. It's at the Office of Contract Archaeology, University of New Mexico. It's out of print. You can buy it. It's going to cost you like $20 to get a copy of it, or maybe more now. I actually have a copy of it here, which is, like I said, it is full of color pictures. It's got all kinds of cool things in it. Shows the debris field. Talks about the expedition and what they did. It's available. How many of you knew about this book? Any of you? You knew about it? You have a copy of it?
Yes, I do on my computer.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. You should, for those of you that are interested in the really good, I mean, it's science behind some of this stuff and what they did, go buy a copy of this. So it's kind of an interesting thing. By the way, I don't think it's copyrighted, so it's there's no copyright marks anywhere other than this, and that's not a copyright mark. So, all right. So, what kind of work have I done? When I first, being a geologist, I do things like I look at, I try to do good science. I look at, try to understand the terrain. I pulled out as many aerial and satellite images that I could possibly pull out and start comparing them and look for changes. So I want to show you something. This is 1946, before the crash. And I don't have 47 or 48. So the next year that I have is 1954. There's some 63 stuff, but it pretty much looks like the 73. So there's some big jumps here. 46, I want you to take a look at this little curved area right here on this image and kind of focus on this area, and then we're going to take a look at this stuff right here. So in this area. So 1954. Not the same resolution. There's now higher resolution images that the government has now released. They're a little slow in getting stuff out in, but they pretty much look the same. So we're going to kind of focus on this stuff right here, and we'll come back and look at that in the next image. But notice that this curve, that curve's gone, all right? And this little white line right here, kind of interesting. I thought that was a glitch in the negative, like a scratch, but no, it actually shows up right here too. So it's not a glitch. That line is actually something that was there. It's like something was moved or dug up or whatever. So it was a disturbances. When we look at pictures, we look for change. So there's a lot of change between the 46 and the 54. Lots of change. And then it even kind of shows up here. You can actually see some kind of squared off things right here, and there is this little line right here, which I think is the original gouge mark. That's what I think. I have found, this is what prompted me to go out there and start looking. with a metal detector. And all in this area right here, I found an amazing collection of little tiny pieces of metallic artifacts. It's just incredible on that. So we look for change. So this is pretty good evidence. This would stand up in a court of law. There's definitely been some change. I had an Italian expert in satellite imagery sent me an email because he saw one of these pictures, and he says, I want to study this. He says, send me all you got. So he has some very sophisticated, I'll use this, mathematical algorithms that can look through photographs and look for changes much better than we can. And he sent me a report back with some color stuff that he had worked on. He said, it's not only this area, but look at this. He says, whatever's happened out there, it's been scraped, covered up, people have tried to hide things. He showed me all kinds of stuff. It really opened my eyes, and I'm going, wow, this is like incredible. So yeah, it's been changed a lot.
How big of an area is that?
Oh, this, let me back up. We are talking probably maybe, I don't think that's probably maybe quarter, half a mile. That quarter of a mile, probably. So maybe a little bit more, maybe third of a mile or something. So it's I mean, you can walk across this, and it'll take you a walking maybe 5 minutes to get from here to there. So it's really not that far. So it's not that big. All right, so this is the same 1954 image, but it's been what's called contrast enhanced to sort of show shadows and show things with a little more detail to it. Really cool thing that showed up in the picture was this rectangle right here with the little white lines and the dots on the corners. Not in the previous image at all. Very interesting, very compelling. And I have found artifacts kind of scattered all around this and within the center of this. So it's unusual to see that. These are parallel scrape marks. Can you guys see the parallel lines right here that are radiating out from this and these? All right, those are where either people have gone in and raked furrows, or they're bulldozer track marks. They're about the right size for bulldozer track marks. So this is a 1954. So between 46 and 54, somewhere in there, probably 47, somebody went in there and did an awful lot of work to either try to cover something up or try to discover whatever was left over out there. So this is pretty good stuff. By the way, a lot of this stuff I'm talking about is featured in Don Schmidt's new book, and it's on page 117 or 117, I think. There's a chapter called "The Holy Grail" that talks about some of this stuff I found and what has happened to the materials. This is one. Now, this is a little new photograph. We're going to get to the metal and plastic here in just a minute. These are. I've become good friends with the researchers. Stan Friedman had a little interesting conversation last night at the panel. Any of you go to the panel last night?
Yes.
Yeah, you guys probably heard my comments in reference to Stan. We disagree on the Foster Ranch. I got to tell you what transpired afterward. I walked up to him, I put my arm around him, I said, you know what, we have a difference of opinion on the plains of San Augustine, not Foster Range. And he says, I only read Art Campbell's book. He says, I never saw the data. And I says, oops. I says, I have the original data given to me by the people that funded that. He didn't know that. So he said, I'm going to show it to him today so he can see that. So he was just going by Art Campbell's book. So some of these, I don't flaunt, and I should share all this because I don't write books, but I should just give it to all these authors that are out there so they don't make mistakes about certain things. And that was a mistake that he made. Love him dearly, he's like the grandfather. I felt so embarrassed to do that because I'm going, oh God, he's like the grandfather of the Roswell story. How do I do this? But I'm a scientist and so we're used to bantering science facts back and forth. Anyway, Bill Brazel, I said, remember that name, he found these little bits and pieces. He later went out at a very old age with Don Schmidt, Tom Carey, out to the debris field, and he showed them where he had picked this stuff up, found it on horseback. Don trusts me, and I asked Don Schmidt, I says, can you tell me where this was? And he pointed it out on a map, and I started doing some research. Right smack dab in the middle of where Bill Brazel had found this stuff are these lines. This is about 200 feet long, probably maybe 50 feet long, but somebody had gone in there and at a later date, this is not a new photograph, this was probably from late 1990s, but it was before the Sci-Fi Channel dig. Somebody went smack dab in the middle of that area and started doing some work, and they did a little bit of work in here too. So it was pretty weird stuff. This is not natural. Somebody systematically went in there and tried to find something. I have found artifacts, several of them scattered around, but nothing inside of this. But it was kind of cool. Anyway. All right, so some of my work. I found in 2010, buried about 3-4 inches deep, spaced probably 10-15, they were not all in one area. I found some military fatigue buttons. These are made out of aluminum. And they have been identified being late 40s, early 50s military fatigue buttons. So I know the military is out there on their hands and knees probably getting this stuff. And this is in the same place that I had found artifacts kind of scattered around it. Very first specimen that I found was this one. I went out there after doing all my aerial photograph stuff and I was out there for about 6 hours and was swinging a metal detector, getting really frustrated, wasn't finding anything. And then I get this beep in an anthill. And it goes beep like this, and I'm like, what the heck is that? So dig down, it's about this deep, top of the anthill, get this little piece of metal in my hand, about had a heart attack. Gust of wind came by and blew it out of my hand.
Oh.
Then I spent the next probably 3 or 4 minutes trying to find it again, and it scared me. And then I started looking around, like paranoid. I said, oh, are those going to be like black helicopters or whatever? I said, I got a piece of metal. And then I settled down and going, it could be anything. We need to do some work on this. So we're going to talk about this piece and what happened to it. So, museum grants me some money. I tell them what I found, who I am, what I'm doing, and everything. So Julie Schuster, the old UFO museum director, she said, yeah, we'll pay for some analysis. So I took it to New Mexico Tech. They analyzed it, came back as being like a silicon, magnesium, aluminum alloy, and there was no isotopes. We're going to talk about isotope work right now. So it kind of sort of looked like an aircraft alloy or whatever. So I came back to the museum. I said, we need to get some ice. There's more to this story, but it's really long. So there was, I tried to get some work done at University of New Mexico, and one group up there said they wouldn't touch it when they found out that it was Roswell. They basically almost threw me out of their office, and they said, it's a bunch of hooey, we don't want to deal with it. Mike Spildy's very open mind. He analyzed it, basically said, yeah, it looks like aircraft alloy. Sort of shook his head a couple of times when he was looking at it. So he's a good scientist. Not a friend, but I know him. So based upon all of that analytical work that was done, I convinced the museum. I said, we need to get some isotopes done. So I sent it off. Now, isotopes. Isotopes are exactly like your thumbprint. All right, so it can tell us whether something is from Earth, or it can tell us whether it's from the moon or from Mars or from someplace in space, because all of these little isotopes are markers for where it comes from. It's not complex science, but it's chemistry. It's just the way the Earth is formed, and every element that's out there has some mates, should I speak. So magnesium has like 3 or 4 what we call isotopes. Some of them are radioactive, some of them are not. Some of them are stable, which means they stay around in the environment. And so anyway, magnesium is a good one to work with because it's pretty common in the universe. So, Earth's fingerprint. This doesn't change ever and will not change ever. All right, so these are the 3 markers for it. 78.99, 10, and 11.1 for the different isotopes of magnesium. I get this thing looked at, AH1, anthill 1, classic name, right? Because I found it in an anthill. came out to be 79.1, 10.1, and 10.8. Oops, there's a problem. This can't be changed, ever. When you start getting variations in this, it tells you that something is rotten in Denmark, okay? It's probably not from Earth. So, this is what we got. We got this right here, which sort of, kind of, maybe hints at the fact that it might be of extraterrestrial origin. Here's the problem. These solid lines right here represent analytical error. They are the error factor. This specimen was way over, right at the edge of the error factor of their instrumentation. Now we've got a problem. Is it extraterrestrial or is it analytical error? We don't know. It seems to suggest that it's extraterrestrial. This line right here marks where things from Earth would be found. All right, so we're talking about some mineral called olivine. This is Amazon river water. These are various perfect samples of magnesium that have been purified on Earth. This is a rock called magnesite. This is dolomite, another rock. This is North Atlantic seawater. But notice they all fall right on that line. This one doesn't, because that little thing right there called a chondrite is a meteorite. It's from space, so it doesn't match. It's not on the line, and it all falls really close right in there. But once again, this one's out here. So arrangements were made to have it analyzed again. But we'll talk about this just a little bit more before we get to that. It sort of kind of matches, when we look at the elements that are in this alloy, it sort of kind of matches stuff here on Earth. In fact, it looks a lot like an aluminum can, which we all have. There's a big, huge catalog that's out there, which is made by the Aluminum Association, that lists every single composition that there ever was created since like the 1940s. Except for top secret stuff, all the element concentrations are there, and you can go out, you can punch this stuff into the computer, and it'll tell you exactly what alloy it is. Well, alloys have names. The stuff that's in cans is a 3004 alloy, and they've got 3104, and they've got another 5000 series alloy that's actually at the top of the can, which is harder. So we look at this, and all of these things, and you can take highs and lows for these. These are just variations in the chemistry. And so it looks like a 304. This one right here is AH1. So it looks pretty much like these, except for one thing. It's got a really weird manganese content, which doesn't match any of these. That's this light blue one. Manganese is really low, and if you take a look, the rest of it is okay. But some of this is pretty much of a match, except maybe for a little bit of this stuff down here, which is some zinc, and I think there was a little bit of chrome or nickel sitting in there as well, which was kind of different from some of these. But this was the weird one, which was the manganese content. Didn't match that. But for all intents and purposes, it looks like it might be a can, but we don't know. So, interesting thing, this man, Wilbert Smith, he worked on a project in Canada. He had top secret security clearance. He was Canadian. This was released in a Freedom of Information Act, whatever the corresponding thing is for Canada. A lot of countries release their secret documents after 20 or 30 or 40 years, and this was just one of them. So Wilbert Smith worked on something called Project Magnet. He's never been, anybody ever heard of him before, Wilbert Smith? You got to go read about him. This guy was amazing. He did electronic engineering for UFO detection and did all kinds of exotic things. Supposedly, there was some exchange between our people and him about the UFO materials that had been analyzed. This is what he said. He's never been debunked. His stuff sounds like science fiction, but nobody's ever gone up against him because it was released in official government documents. Nobody has ever said this man was wrong. In an interview, just about a year before he passed away, he said, "One portion of aluminum was as hard as quartz. It could only be broken for analysis by grinding, yet the composition seemed similar to standard kitchen pots." And this is what he said. It was related to material from the late 40s or early 50s that came from unidentified flying objects. I went out and looked up standard kitchen pot material. You guys have this stuff in your house. Guess what it is? It's a 3004 alloy. It's one of the most common alloys on Earth. We use it to build everything. That tripod back there is probably made out of 3004 alloy. It's in computers, it's in aircraft, it's in everything. So, interesting thing that, according to analytical work, the aliens are building their spacecrafts out of stuff that looks very similar to what we have here on Earth, which is kind of cool because there's only certain ways you can mix things together. You know, there's no element X or whatever, and there's certain things that will mix and certain things that won't, and the only thing you can do is change the molecules on the inside and do things to make it harder and tougher. By the way, the Japanese have done some work on this 304 alloy, and they've gotten it up to a point where it is as hard and as tough as a piece of steel. It's not soft. It's pretty interesting material. They build bridges out of it. It's kind of cool. I asked them if they'd send me a piece. They said no. They said, all we have is big chunks that we used to build ships out of. And I said, really? I said, you don't have a little piece laying in your office that you can send me because I want to do some studies on it. And they said, no, we can't send you a piece of it. Whatever. All right. It would be, you know, if I was like North Korea, they'd probably send it to me. Anyway, are you ready for this? Here's the story. I want to get some additional work done on this to prove, because it's anomalous. It seems to be like it might be extraterrestrial. I make arrangements with Arizona State University, top-notch lab, to get me perfect resolution and perfect everything on this down to 0.000 whatever error factor, which is next to nothing, which they said they could do. Package the stuff up. FedEx package. Inside package was a round plastic box with foam in the top and a little piece of black felt with the specimen directly on the top, and I compressed it down so you can see it directly in the middle, wrapped it with tape, put my initials around the outer edge, sealed up tight. That went into a smaller padded envelope, sealed with tape, once again, with my name on it. That was put inside of a FedEx next day package, and that was sealed and sent off. I even put tape around that too after I sealed it. Didn't put my name on it. Send it off to ASU. I get this telephone call the next day, and the lady scientist said, Frank, where's the specimen? And I go, you gotta be kidding me, right? She was like in tears. She says, it's not in the box. We searched the lab, we searched everywhere. She says, it did sit in our mailroom for an hour, but the package was not tampered. We don't know where it is or what happened to it. So now it's my word against theirs. So the end result is we lost probably 50% of this specimen, if not more. Gone, disappeared. Now I'm paranoid. Because of some things that I did, I put this out on YouTube and Facebook and the internet and basically bashed Arizona State University for their incompetence. They basically said that it was unprofessional, and they said that they would not work with this or deal with it anymore, and that was the end of that, and it still hasn't been analyzed. So it disappeared. They could have proved it as being either earthly or extraterrestrial in origin. So now we move on. Another metal artifact I found out there was sent to Phyllis Bundinger in Art Barnes, I think, is he doesn't talk much, but he's a good analytical chemist. He analyzed this material. When I found this, it was all covered with rust, and it looked like just a piece of steel, but it was weird because it was not magnetic. And then I scratched the surface, and it was shiny silver, and then I cleaned the rust off. I should have just left it because it looked weird. You can still see a little bit of it there. Should have never cleaned it off. Really old piece of stuff. He analyzed it. I don't know why they left out the manganese content, but for all intents and purposes, it looked like a 5000 series thing. It's used for aerospace, marine, and containers. He did some magnesium isotopes, and the magnesium isotopes for Earth is right here. This is ocean water, and there was another little odd one, which was water out here, but it's all close in. Falls on that line. This SH1, which stands for sinkhole, because it was found in a sinkhole, ended up being out here. So I asked him about that. I says, well, do you think it, and his analytical, I mean, let's put no error, all right? So we don't have to worry about this big error factor. There was no error factor. He ran scan, he did all the right work on this. I asked him if he thought that maybe, he says that's up to you to get, in this, to get a second or third analysis. He says it's kind of close. Once again, he says it's kind of at the edge, but it's really not. It sort of sits out here. It needs more work. Never been tested again. This was about another $400 or $500 worth of work that was done. So luckily, I don't pay for this. Other people do. So this was interesting. This was called DF1, and this one I don't know what to make of this, other than the fact that it was done by a scientist that may or may not be really good at what he does, and I won't mention his name or anything like that. But I sent the specimens to it, and along with one, and I think it's right. I think it's correct, because I also sent kind of a fictitious one that was not Roswell material, just to make sure that I had a standard to go by, and it came out what it was supposed to. So I think this is probably true. So this thing called DF1 stands for debris field 1. I still have a piece of this. This is an unknown alloy. I have looked at this. It hasn't, no magnesium isotopes have been done. No other work's been done on this. This one is truly an unknown. I have no idea what it is. It's not a can. It's a different alloy, and it just needs more testing. So this was a weirdie. This stuff. Okay, let me check the time. Make sure I'm not running out of time here. Wherever my phone went to. Where did my phone go to? What's that?
10:49.
Ah, we're good. Okay, so let's keep going here. All right, so this was on a Smithsonian-funded documentary. They came out here. That's Ben Hansen from Fact or Fake. That's Don Schmidt. This is the producers and directors of the show. We went out to the debris field. This was funded by the Smithsonian. They actually caught an artifact being found out there, not staged, not fake. We found it, they photographed it, documentaries out there. We went to New Mexico Tech. They said, oh, it looks like aircraft alloy. We went to University of Arizona. Still had what's called chain of custody, so it was protected fairly well. Mike Spildy did the work on this. He says, yeah, it looks like aircraft alloy, but that's all they did. Then the key tool, the magnesium isotopes, the fingerprint that tells us whether it's extraterrestrial. The show said, okay, Frank, tell us what we need to do. And I said, well, you need to run like three things to test this. We need a standard, we need aluminum can trash, we need aircraft alloy from the time period, and we need my specimen. Run them all side by side, compare them, see. That's good science to see what it comes back with. So I wait for them. I'm supposed to be there. I wait for them to fly me to the lab in Canada, which was Trent University. They had made arrangements. So I wait. I hear nothing from the studio. Then I get this email at my work at the Military Institute. It says, Professor Kimbler says, I'm a scientist, and I saw you on a recently aired show. It was called UFO Declassified in Canada. And I'm going, oh, they told me it was going to be released in Canada, so they never contacted me. Wow. I went out and watched. He says, there's something odd about it, because they said that your material was earthly, that it was not extraterrestrial. And I'm going, okay, well, that's cool. I says, but I need to watch the show. So I found it on YouTube, and I watched it. And they get all the way through this, and they say, you know, they showed the little chart. They said, oh, it's not of extraterrestrial origin, that it's earthly in nature. And then it cuts to me. It's called a hero scene, looking with my metal detector out in the desert. And they said something like, and Frank Kimbler continues his elusive search for material of extraterrestrial origin. I'm going, okay, cool. So I contact the scientist, and I said, hey, I'm the guy that found the stuff. Tell me about what you found. He says, yeah, he says, it was, the magnesium isotopes indicated that it was more than likely from seawater, which is cool, because that's where we get magnesium from. All of it, except for the can, which he said sort of indicated that it might be, some of it might be recycled. Cool, all the information that we get that proves it's from Earth. He says it's not extraterrestrial. And I says, well, what else did you find? And he says, we found, if you know your elements in the periodic table, he says, we found about 3% molybdenum in the aluminum alloy. And I went, cha-ching, I know a lot about this stuff because I've studied it over the years. And I said, is that an error? And he got mad at me. He says, no, we do good science, it's not an error. I'm going, okay, can you send me the data? No, it belongs to the studio. So I contacted Don Schmidt, because Don Schmidt's the one that set all this up. And I said, Don, there's something wrong, I need to see this data. And he says, you'll get it. He says, I'll get my attorneys on it. Within 24 hours, I had it in my email box, and I got to reading it. And sure enough, this is what we end up with. Here's the magnesium isotopes. Dead on that line that says it's from Earth. Perfect. All of it, even the standards. So this was a reference standard. This is the artifacts and the aviation alloy. This was a modern soda can, and this is another standard. Notice the standards. Everything dropped on the line. Perfect for earthly origin. I love this. All right? Now, the good part. These are standards. This is a standard right here. This is aircraft alloy from back in the days, from the 1940s. This is the sample that they analyzed. If you look across, this actually has a lot of copper in it. It was called Duralloy or Duraluminum, which we made our aircraft alloys. Very tough stuff. I got a piece of it in here. Stuff is amazing. You could shoot an aircraft with multiple rounds of all kinds of stuff, and it would still fly because the stuff was almost indestructible. You could hardly tear it up. It had a lot of copper in it, and impurities in copper, you end up with a little bit of molybdenum. It's pretty common things, but this was much less than, it was less than 1%, which is acceptable. However, my sample had almost 3% molybdenum in the aluminum. This is a standard that was run to make sure the equipment's working okay. Very tight scientific work. That's an impossibility. You can't put 3% molybdenum in aluminum alloy, it won't work. We tried that in World War II just because molybdenum is a hardening agent. We use molybdenum, chrome, steel, and that stuff is incredibly hard. We use it to make scissors out of and all kinds of stuff. Stuff is really tough. Can't do it with aluminum. I know for a fact it's impossible. All right, so impossible to have 3% molybdenum. We try to get the sample back. The show producers say it's lost. I don't have a backup on this one. Oops, it's gone. Too bad. I'll learn my lesson on this. All right, so I found some pieces of plastic out there. I sent it off to Phyllis Bundinger, top-notch scientist for working with organic materials. She does a lot of UFO stuff. A lot of UFO people don't like her too much because, especially people that want to make a profit and try to proclaim that they have found extraterrestrial stuff. She tells it like it is because she's a good scientist. She'll tell you whether it's a UFO or whether it's a bunch of horse manure. That's what she says. All right, and she'll tell you. So she says this fragment's very brittle, composed of mostly an epoxy resin based on called bisphenol A, all this technical stuff. Very similar to bakelite. Notice the word. Very similar to bakelite. All right. It also had a red coating on it that was a polyacrylate styrene copolymer. Plastic coating, paint, sort of like paint. It's used as insulating components for electrical and electronic industries, for aircraft, automotive components, machinery, and chemical apparatus. So this is kind of cool. It was found very remote, in a remote section within the debris field, but not near any roads. It was just in the middle of nowhere. Don't even know how it got there. I didn't find it with a metal detector. It was after a rainstorm laying on the surface, so I actually have several pieces of this. This was neat. It's used for aircraft. I also later did a little bit of work on it, found out that this material can also be used as heat shield for, it was used for heat shield material in some of our old spacecrafts that we built. Not Gemini, but the Mercury mission. They actually had some of this was heat shield material. Kind of cool. Close-up view of it. It does have the resin quartz side. It did have some quartz-like filler in it. It has been melted. She said she didn't know whether it was from the manufacture process. I left the part out that was really cool. She says, Frank, she says, this stuff, I can't explain why it's out there. It's in, you said you found it in the middle of nowhere. She says, this is what we call a WTF moment. That's all she said. So fill in the blanks on that one. So she does, and this hasn't been analyzed again. We should do carbon-14 on this. So just to kind of run through this real fast, there was some black plastic material that looked like bakelite. It was not until the 1950s that the use of epoxy compounds in a commercial way was introduced. That wasn't until 1956. So how this got out there, I have no idea. Where it came from, I have no idea. You decide. Is this the bakelite stuff from the crash? I don't know. You guys figure it out. 25 or 30 specimens have been found in the area in the last 9 years. The buttons, the metal fragments, most of this has not been analyzed, and I have it all, except for one piece that was lost, which was this one from the Smithsonian. I found another piece down here where the buttons were, which is going to get analyzed. I'm seven of them are lock and key and heavily protected because I think it's going to be part of maybe a new TV series. I don't know. I found this out there. This one's never been analyzed. I measured its density. It's heavy. It is magnetic. It was buried 3-4 inches deep. When I dug it out, it had no rust on it, not a scrap, except for tiny amounts of rust that was like inside the cracks, but I think it was just kind of dirt related. It hasn't been analyzed. It's been through hell and back. It has what we call explosive deformation. There's stuff in it that indicated that this stuff has been through, like I said, it's been through hell. It's shattered. You don't get marks like this unless it has been forcibly ripped from something at high velocity. So it has typical marks like you get from an explosion. These samples, some of them are on display at the International UFO Museum. Most people walk by this right here, and they don't even see it. But it doesn't have my name on it, but if you look, there's a button. There's the piece of metal, here's a piece of the bakelite plastic, and some of the metal alloys that I have found out there. So it's on display at the museum, and if you want to come by, I've actually got some that you can hold in your hand, get it up close, come by and see me after this today. This one's weird. Is there another speaker coming in here, like now? Okay, so we're cool, we're good. This was not found exactly at the crash site, but it was between what's called the gouge, the debris field, and what was considered the windmill out there. The windmill was not there in 47, it was built later, but it shows up in all the books and movies and stuff. It's kind of cool, but it's just a historical fact. There was no windmill there in 47, but between where the well was, the windmill, and the debris field, which there's stuff that went all the way to the fence line, I found this piece, and I'm not sure what this is. This might be a piece of trash that is out there, but it was shredded up just like all the rest of it. When I looked at it under a microscope, it had writing on it. Okay, and I'm going, oh my gosh. And I showed this to the late Jack Rodden, who does some Roswell research, and he was on the board of the International UFO Museum. Very nice man, a professional photographer. And I showed this picture to him. And I said, I think this might be dot matrix from the printing on a can. I think it might be can trash. And he said, no, it's not dot matrix. I've done a lot of halftone work, and this is not it. And he says, don't show this to people because you might get yourself killed over this one. That's what he said. Scared me. So I haven't shown it much. I think I showed it last year. And by the way, if you take a look, this is kind of an artist's conception of the stuff that Jesse Marcel Jr. looked at, the I-beam with the writing. But notice the base of this, the way this comes down and flares out, and how this flares up, and how this kind of comes down. If you look at this, this flares too. It comes down just like this, and it flares out. It looks very similar to this. Beats me. It would be easy to analyze this with infrared spectroscopy to see if it's ink from today. It hasn't been done. All of this stuff is expensive, and check the alloys. This is one I'm not sure. It's intriguing because it looks like writing, and it was found at the crash site area. This piece, this came into the museum, and they asked me to take a look at it. It's in their vault. Interesting story behind it. they get this in the mail, and it's an anonymous letter that was typed up, and they said, hey, you know, my father was a good man, or my grandfather was a good man, and he was sent out to a crash site in Roswell, or not Roswell, some crash site somewhere here in New Mexico, to clean up the debris. And when he got home, he found this little piece of metal in the cuff of his pants that apparently had dropped there, and he used it as a bookmark in, what is it? I gotta see the book here. The Wrong Box was the name of the book by Robert Louis Stevenson. He used it as a bookmark in the book. It's never been analyzed. I don't know whether this story is true. The museum gets a lot of bogus stuff sent to them all the time. This one's never been looked at. It looks like a piece from the outer casing of an old cell phone or something. I have no idea. It's never been looked at. I tinkered with it a little bit and just did some little preliminary things on it. Yeah, it's an aluminum alloy, some kind. That's the best that I can figure out. It's never been tested. Okay, so here's a nice little video done by Gary Holloway with his drone. This is done in 4K. It's really high resolution. You're going to get a bird's eye view of a crash site and fly over the top of it, take a look. And then I'll point out some places that I found some material. By the way, that hole that you see down here in the bottom of this one, that's the leftovers from the Sci-Fi Channel dig that was out there. This line is cattle trails, but it's where the craft supposedly came down. Anytime you drive into the area, you leave track marks in the grass at certain times of year. And they stay there for a very long time. So they're actually flying away from the debris field. So this is actually not the debris field. You're flying away from it. And by the way, I found an artifact over here and going back over this way. But they're scattered far, but it's within the zone. So that's the Capitans in the background. So the craft supposedly came down this way and basically left a gouge that ran this direction. Gouge mark kind of ran this way, kind of like in line with these things. So artifacts have been found over here. MUFON, when we're still looking at that stuff, there's some found in this valley right here and on this hillside, which would be perfect for it because it would have been splashed up there. So this is the actual debris field area. Mac Browsel area is back this way. Most of the artifacts have come from in here. Really hard to muck through, lots of high grass, and some artifacts have come from in here. We're going to curve around, and then you'll get another view. This is where the buttons were found, and a number of artifacts have been found back up in this area. Kufos dug a really big hole back in here, back in the 1980s. AH-1 was found over in here. It's my first artifact that I found. I found nothing up here. I've looked heavily on this and haven't found anything. Okay, hunting alien artifacts, it's not an easy task, guys. That's a tough one. A couple of my favorite things, Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, and this was Picard with the sneaky woman archaeologist. If I was not married and younger and she was living and actually existed, I'd go track that woman down. She was devious and sly and an archaeologist, and I'm going, oh, that's perfect, okay? So, Vosh, that's right. Who said that? Yeah, Vosh. You know what? All right, if you have a fantasy for me, my wife says, what? And I says, hey, I really like Vosh. Apparently Picard liked her an awful lot too. So it's kind of neat. Anyway, this is a debris field. Here's my friend Jesse Marcel Jr. I spent 6 or 7 or 8 hours with him. When I took him out just a few weeks before he passed away. In fact, his daughter sent me an email message going, hey, you were with my dad. He really enjoyed being with you and talking with you. And I says, I'm really sad to tell you that he passed away in his sleep. And I'm going, oh gosh. So really, really neat man. Loved talking to him. And anyway, that's the end of my talk. I think I ran over. But Any of you have any questions? Oh, good grief, yes, sir.
Why doesn't somebody step forward with a couple of $1,000 to get these world-changing artifacts tested? Now, an ICP-MS test is probably, like you said, $500. You know, Open Minds has done testing of some of these artifacts.
Yes, I know. And they're gonna do some on mine too. It's sort of like in the works. It's expensive, and what happens is, if you get one and it comes back anomalous, you have to go get another one, and you go get another one. And what happens is some of these tests are being done by uncertified labs. You need that certification. It needs to be done the right way. $500 is like the cheap end of it by an uncertified lab, but I checked with one that is it's Evans Analytical Group that could give me isotope ratios down to 0.0000 whatever. They did some work on Peter Sturrock's stuff for Ubatuba, whatever it was called, down in Brazil. That scientific work was top notch. It was fantastic. They ended up with isotope ratios that were out, the analytical error was next to nothing on it. They said, yeah, we can analyze your stuff. It's going to cost you $4,000 a pop to do it, to get that kind of resolution on their machine. There's only 3 or 4 people in the entire world that have that instrument. The government's one, Evans Analytical Group is another one, and there's some universities that actually have that. It is real expensive to have it done. And time. I'm not going to let this stuff out of my sight, so if they pay for that to be done, they're going to have to send me along and pay for it. All right, that's all there is to it, because I'm not letting it out of my sight anymore. But you're right. If some entrepreneur had lots of money and wants to dump, I would say probably a good 20 to 50 grand on having this stuff analyzed. I got lots of stuff to be analyzed, and we would have our answers. But see, if it comes back as being trash, and they're out 50,000. Well, big deal. If you're a zillionaire like Trump or whatever, it doesn't make any difference. Just write it off as a tax deduction. No big deal. But I don't know why they don't do that. I wish there was somebody that has lots of money that could dump this in there. And I should do one of those crowdfunding things to see if I can come up with some money to do this. I don't let this interfere with my work at all, which is why money allows me to do this. And without, I'm a tenured professor, and they don't bug me about it, but I don't let it interfere with my work. And I only do this stuff maybe during the summer, or maybe on the weekends, or sometimes I just let it sit and I forget about it. So I'm not in it for the money. I'd like to get an answer, but it's expensive. That's a good question. Yes, sir.
I'm just curious, because I've asked a lot of people about this, but I've been studying one man for 10 years, and I want to ask you if you can elaborate. You've heard of him, but supposedly this is the first guy that really had the first physical evidence. Supposedly he was murdered, and then they said it was suicide. They cut his fingers off, and then Black took him out. His name is Philip Schneider.
I'm not familiar with that name, although, well, actually, yes, I have. I am familiar with that name a little bit, but I don't know the stories behind it, and I don't know I do remember that vaguely, but I don't know that. There's all early on, up until about maybe the 70s or maybe the 60s, people were threatened and things were disappeared, including people, and people were killed. And that seemed to have stopped abruptly after about the 60s. Up to that time, yeah, people were getting threatened, people were getting disappearing, people were getting in strange accidents and all kinds of stuff. That type of stuff has stopped. And it might be because back in those days, we didn't have that dissemination of information that we have today. Now, as fast as I find stuff, I stick it out on the internet. It'd be real embarrassing for me to disappear, considering I work at a military institute. And then I put this stuff out on the internet. I think it would be embarrassing if I disappeared. It would be weird.
Just one other thing. Can you elaborate a little bit on the reality or non-reality of the grays?
I will say this. We know for a fact, thanks to our scientific research, that there are over 4,000 solar systems, planets that we have seen. Of those, many of them are in what's called the habitable zone, which means it's perfect for water, perfect for life, in planets that are about the same size as Earth. The universe is vast, all right? And there are billions and billions of stars that have planets around them. And we've only looked at a very small, little tiny speck of our own galaxy, the Milky Way. To believe that we are the only intelligent life form out there, I think, is probably wrong. Like, big wrong. The universe is very old, 12 or 13 billion years old. Guys, I got news for you. We're not alone, and I suspect there's probably multiple civilizations out there, and I suspect some of them have visited us. You know, when we first started detonating our nuclear weapons, that sent out an EM pulse across the universe like you wouldn't believe. They were probably saying, oh, the little ants down there have created something unique. We need to go check it out. So they probably came to visit us. You know, it's kind of weird. I've got, and I have a really, I mean, I'm a scientist, but I do have an open mind, a really good open mind. This whole idea about multiverse, multi-universe ideas, interdimensional, there is a distinct possibility that they may be from Earth, just a different dimension. And that's a possibility. They just figured out a way to cross over into ours. Right? And sort of might explain why their crafts can make zigzags and right angle turns. They just switch back to their universe for a little while, change the direction of their ship, and boom, they're off. I mean, and then come back into ours. So interesting science there. Time travelers, I don't know. There seems to be some violations of some physics there, but you know what? You keep finding new things all the time. So do they exist? I'm sure they do. Something crashed in Roswell. I strongly believe that it was an extraterrestrial spacecraft, otherwise the government wouldn't have a conniption fit over it and threaten people and everything else. I've spoke to lots of experts. There's been reports of hundreds of crashes of extraterrestrial things all over the world. I spoke to some really good people about it. They said you can count what they think are the legitimate ones on your hands, all right? So there haven't been that many that I mean, there's hundreds that have been reported. Roswell is one of the best ones, and there are a few other ones that may be out there that could be real. Of course, you know, you don't hear things from China. You hear a lot out of South America, things like that. So I don't know whether to believe that. So I guess the general consensus is, yeah, we get visited, and yeah, the Greys are probably real. And it's not just them. There's probably the ones that look like us that have long hair and they're really tall. I think they call them the Nordics or whatever. So yeah, you know what? Even the Native Americans believe that we were visited, and even the Zunis, I think, believe that they are descendants of some of the aliens. I don't know. If we have any Zunis in here, please beat me up on it. All right. So I read a little bit. I don't read enough. So do I believe in the extraterrestrials? Yes, I do. I'd be stupid not to believe them. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am, in the back.
Years ago, when they first started doing the alien incident, they had a tour. Tours went out to the site. Are you allowed anymore to go out there, or do you have to get permission?
You know what? Tours were going out to the Corn Ranch, which is north of town. That site's been sort of kind of debunked by most of the
Okay, so it
authors.
wasn't all the way to the Corona site.
Yeah, the Corona site is the only legitimate one. There was somebody charging like $100 for people to go out to what was supposedly the legitimate debris field. I don't know whether that person is doing that here in town or not.
But they
It's not private land. It's taxpayer property. It belongs to the Bureau of Land Management, BLM. It's our land, is what it is. You do have to cross ranch land and go through a gate to get to it. Most of the time that gate is open. It has been locked in the past for short periods of time until I go out there a lot. I haven't been out there in a while, but if it gets locked, people complain about it. But so the rancher sort of keeps it open, and the ranch foreman goes out and kind of stops by and sees and looks.
The old Foster Ranch stuff?
Yeah, it's out on the old Foster Ranch, and the site that most people drive to is the sci-fi monument that's out there, which is really, really cool. There's this big plaque in concrete marble that says, on this day in 1947, the craft of unknown. It's kind of a neat plaque that's out there. That's not at the debris field. It's not that far away, but they purposely put that there saying this is the crash site, but that's not the crash site. So it's public land, and no, it's if you can figure out where it is, go. Ain't nobody gonna say anything.
But you aren't going to tell us where it is.
I won't do that. I'm gonna let you go through the adventure of trying to find it, because I went to the UFO museum and I got here and I says, where is it? They said no. It didn't take me long to figure it out, but it's kind of a fun adventure looking at aerial photographs and Google Earth. And you know what, if you go out and look at this image right here, one of these days I'll show you. Wow, gotta get far enough back so you can see it. If you go back and find this in Google Earth, that way, you got it. Look for these little marks that were done by the Sci-Fi Channel for their dig. It'll be an adventure for you, then you can get out there, it's no problem. Might take you a day or two to figure it out. Yeah.
Two questions, if I may. The first would be on the concluding slide that you had up there for a while, you know, where you went to speak with the actual witness. Were you at that time able to show him the video flyover of the little remote, and that he able to comment what areas he was picking up debris back when he was in his military role?
Oh, you know what? That was Jesse Marcel Jr. and he,
junior rather than the other one.
not the senior. Jesse
Oh,
Marcel
okay.
Jr. only saw the stuff at a young age that his
Understood.
father brought back, so
Okay.
he'd never been out there until I took him
Thank
out
you.
to the site. So,
Is there any markings of a recordation relative to that? Say a map, any kind of visual possible at that time period in 47, that where he could mark where his objects that he picked up, finally he's ordered, there's the debris collection and so on, of exactly how it initially scattered? This is kind of like Titanic goes down. First thing you do, you map the field of how things hit. Is there a recordation of that, which is really
it's written up
crucial?
in a lot of the books, because Jesse Marcel did let go out there, and he did tell people he was standing right on the
Yes.
ground, and he says,
And
hey,
is that-
this is the area where it happened.
And so is it demonstrated in an exhibit that's reliable?
You know what? That's a good question.
I mean, you
because-
have to have that before you go into this sort of search.
Yeah,
and
that's
make it
very
meaningful.
true, and I've seen it in documentaries, and I really don't think the
Okay.
museum has that. I mean, they have it in their library, but they don't have it on
Yeah.
display. That'd actually be really good to have that.
That was the thought, of listening to the tale.
Yeah,
The
that
other
would
one,
be-
in this aerial, I'm sorry I came in late with the other presentation, you know? that,
Yes.
Okay. I think we're looking at a limestone geology, are we not? And
Yes, we are.
Yes, because the way they're formed there. When the little, I forgot, what do you call those little remote things that fly around?
Yeah, the,
drone.
yeah.
You know, drones coming out of the grass and it goes up and around. And then up ahead, you see sort of a crater, almost a circular form.
It's a sinkhole.
Yeah, and so
There's
then we
lots
got
of
to this,
them.
and clearly it's a limestone sinkhole, has nothing to do with UFOs, and so
No,
forth.
there's a whole bunch of
Yeah,
sinkholes. out
and
there.
then otherwise, if you're on the ground, not seeing this aerial, so each bit of information is helpful until you came to the end, and I'm sorry to be late. But this you can clearly see is a limestone site.
Yes.
Versus I was interpreting that, you know, we were on the little flyover, oh, gee, would you look at that, isn't that cool? That's where it spun around and wham, it hit into the hole, but not true at all.
No, it just kind of went between.
Yeah.
You sound like a scientist, are you, or just?
I know various subjects, yes.
Okay, cool. All right,
At
so-
any rate, that's what I wanted to know. But there is, as far as you know, okay, respectful question. As far as you know, there's not a diagram or photographs from an aerial or oblique view of the debris field as it was before the collection and the whole thing started.
There's some 1946 imagery that was done, and there's 1954, nothing in between. I displayed that, you probably missed that one. So yeah, there are some pictures, but nothing that pinpoints where, other than the description that the witnesses like Jesse Marcel and Mac Rousel has given of the area, and other people that had driven out there and that were there on site. Other than their description of it, that people have sort of, no one's really plotted it up, except for me. I mean, I plotted it up according to their eyewitness accounts. Really cool thing. Filburn Filford was in UFO Hunters, and he was a young person that went out to the debris field, and they had him on UFO Hunters, and they parked essentially where my vehicle was parked in the drone flyby. And he points off and he says, you know, this is where I work, this is where I pick this stuff up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's right where I'm finding all this metallic stuff. So little things like that are what sort of drives me. And yeah, no, there's no firm documentation as to where these metallic things that I showed on my map, which is what has been found out there is, this is a big sinkhole right here. It's a big one, kind of shallow. And this is the site by channel stuff that was done in 2002, 2006. This is the only documentation that exists, and it's now been filled in some more because I found more. All of it's in GPS coordinates. All of it's been photographed. Very good science. It's
Use
been
your pointer, if you
Yeah.
don't mind, and show the direction of the last flight path.
All right, it basically left from right here, and it flew back this way, and it made a turn, came back like this, went over this way, came right down this way. My car was parked, actually my car was parked right here. It came right down this way, and it flew out this direction, came down this way, and then it made a turn, came back, flew against the edge of this, came back this way, went right through the middle, and came back like that. You want to see it again? Video?
Well, could you pinpoint it beyond these, it's hard to discern, it looks like we have latitude or something up there. Pinpoint the areas as you were narrating when the flyover was occurring. Remember you would say, such and such debris here, I didn't find it up here. Could you hit the points from the positive point of view on that aerial, where your best debris came from, please?
Oh, by all means, it's right here. By the way, I just gave away the location because these are the coordinates, which I should have pulled out, but they're there. So if you took a photograph of that, you know exactly how to get out there. So anyway, that's the this is where a vast majority. This is where the object left a gouge mark right here. So oh yeah, you can punch it in like
Did
this.
it actually hit you?
What's that?
What direction was it?
It came in, according to the story, it came in this way, skipped. It didn't crash here. It actually scraped across the ground, debris was flying all over the place, and the bigger part of it landed 10 or 15 miles farther towards Roswell in the highway. That second site has never been clearly identified. I'm working on that with Don to try to figure out exactly where it is. He gave me some hints. It's definitely on private property, and I'm working with the property owners, trying to get out there, along with the BLM archaeologist that has been out here. So I want to go out to that site, and I want to look at it, and I want to see if there are some more. There was not as much debris out at the primary crash site. That primary crash site has never been found. This is where the thing came in, did one of these, stuff was flying off of it, and then the majority of the craft crashed at another site. There was bodies dropped out about 2.5 miles to the southeast of this, which were found on a bluff, near a bluff, and there was no debris there, just 3 alien bodies that were out there that was found by Mac Brazel and Dee Proctor. Now, I never met Dee Proctor, but I met his business partner, and Dee Proctor his business partner said he knew him very well. He was a friend, business partner. They worked together, and it's a guy that I worked with was his business partner. And he said Dee Proctor would never, ever, ever talk about this, and he was scared to death anytime he would bring up the subject of alien bodies. If he just brought it up, he would like just kind of walk on. He wouldn't talk about it. So. And he was only 11 or 12 years old, so that's an interesting kind of story. So, yeah, a vast majority of all the fragments are concentrated right where they should be, where this thing was sprayed stuff out all over the place. A few artifacts, keep doing that, laser beam. A few artifacts came from way up here, kind of scattered around, some, but they're all within that 300 feet, 400 feet wide by 3/4 of a mile long, kind of V-shaped area, it all falls right in there. So that's where, and yeah, I've tried to find other artifacts way away from this, and there's nothing in the same kind of stuff. So it's kind of an interesting thing. You know, why would all of that stuff be right here, which is where I found all of this. This gentleman has been trying to ask me a question here for like 15 minutes, so, yes, sir.
I have a couple. One is, why doesn't the museum fund some of this research?
They have. They've actually paid for a vast majority of my stuff, but it gets to be expensive, and I don't bug them about it. They're really nice. They are a non-profit organization. They've got money, but I don't know what to say about that. Like I said, they've probably spent, in the past, they've spent a lot of money, and I think they just got tired of hearing the same answer, oh, it's a fraud over there. But they trust me because they're friends. They're like family for me down there. I can't answer that. Like I said, they probably spent $3,000 or $4,000 on me, and we keep getting closer, then the stuff keeps disappearing. I think they're getting tired of it. So they're just careful, like a lot of, and they're not a rich museum. Let's put it that way. You might think they're rich, but they're not. So they're not like the Smithsonian or whatever. They don't have deep pockets. So I get what I can out of them, and then I don't bug them the rest of the time. I've earned their respect for that. So if I just keep coming back and say, hey, can you give me $5,000 to do this? That kind of wears thin after a little while if you don't get some good answers. So maybe they don't want it. I don't know. That's good. What's your next one?
The other one is, has anybody given any consideration into that the government salted or contaminated this area?
Yeah, that's possible.
Different types of debris to...
That's a possibility, because I have found 3, maybe 4 types of material out there, and I strongly suspect that some of it could very well be trash. It's kind of weird because it's all small stuff, real tiny. I can't answer how, it's a possibility that they could have done that. There is something weird that has happened on one of the hillsides where I expected to find a majority of stuff. Somebody went out there way back, took a huge box of iron nails and literally scattered it across the hillside. Now, if you want to really screw up somebody with a metal detector, go out there and throw a whole bunch of nails and metal trash on the ground. And you get so, I mean, I got into this one area about the size of this room where I was finding a nail about every 2 inches with a metal detector. I gave up. Now, yeah, I could go back in there and everything I found, I just kept putting, I mean, I ended up with like a jar full of nails. But why would somebody do this in a remote area? Because they probably, my speculation is they probably knew that this stuff can be detected with a metal detector, and if you want to really screw up the search process, throw some trash out there. All right, throw some, and that's a good question. And yeah, there's some things that might point that way. Like I said, I've got 3 or 4 different types of material, but aircraft's made up of a whole host of things. So there's different alloys, and you can probably find 30 different alloys in an aircraft, and all of them are metallic. So the only way that we can tell is to have this stuff tested. I do know that the stuff that I have found, the last piece that I found, which is, I've got pictures of it over there, it was after a rainstorm. It's about the size of my thumbnail. I looked at it under a microscope. That stuff is really old. All right, it's been out there for a long time. It's corroded. It's got little specks of salt on it from the soil, and the edges are rounded off. It's been melted a little bit. I don't know why it's melted. The stuff is incredibly old. I don't think that's salted. Some of it doesn't look like that. Most of it's buried, and yeah, the government could have gone out there and done that, and it's a possibility. The only way that we're going to tell is to spend a lot of money and do a lot of tests, which is, it would be smart for the government to do that, to go in, and because it's going to make you frustrated, but you know what? If we do enough tests and spend enough money, which they hope that the public doesn't have, we could get our answer. That's a really good question. It's a good one. I like that.
Has there been any other aircraft accidents in that area?
No, I think the closest one was probably 20 miles away, and I checked on that. Lots of speculation about this could have been aircraft crash, I've looked at that, no. Could have been, experimental stuff, could have been a broken arrow event. I've gone out there with radiation detection equipment, nothing. So yeah, it's not anything that's related to biological, nuclear, or aircraft accidents. I know that for a fact. Not the Germans, not the Russians, not anything that, it's something happened out there. I suspect it was an alien spacecraft, judging from what the government has tried to hide from us. I need physical evidence, and I need it done the right way, and it'll prove it. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Wow, lots of questions. Yes.
I just thought, I thought I'd see your thoughts on the possibility of certain crash debris or other materials that have been taken to places like Fort Worth, Texas, or other locations, and what you might think about if there could be any of this potential evidence stored away and kept from the public that's been used for
it's
analysis.
out there, and it's stored, believe me. I haven't done a lot of research, it's just stuff that I've read. Don Schmidt's done a lot of work on this, and other researchers, so yeah, there is stuff stored away. There's a place called, I think, the Blue Room at Wright-Patterson base. You should go look that one up. Supposedly, some of these artifacts are on display in there. It is top secret. It's my understanding, it's way cool. There's some interesting anecdotal information about some things that transpired between, I think, Barry Goldwater in that room. Because he asked one of the people, commanders at Wright-Patterson, if he could see the Blue Room. And he said that was the only time that anybody had ever basically told him that they weren't going to give him access to anything. They said, no, don't even talk about it. And that was the end of that. Interesting stories. So yeah, I'm sure we have debris. It's under lock and key somewhere. I strongly believe that. And you just got to...
That supports the idea of hundreds of troops are out there searching to clean.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the story. And that's actually verified.
I gotta go.
All right. Anybody else?
If I
Okay.
may allow-
What from the, because I already answered, you in the back. Yes, I'm sorry.
How far is the crash site that you were checking on from the monument?
From the monument, half a mile maybe, possibly somewhere around there. So it's pretty close. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. Now I'll get back to
Thank
you.
you for the indulgence. Is the, if you said this at the beginning, just tell me you said it at the beginning. Is the working hypothesis that two crafts hit each other, and why they hit each other, that's debated, and that this is the craft of lesser impact, shall we say, but it's yet damaged, the equivalent of windows or whatever a person views out from, perhaps that separates the 5 individuals, 4 dead, 1 alive is what I think I'm picking up from the
Yes.
researchers, fly out, like in a car crash, or sometimes bodies go out someplace, and then they're found over here. And then, as you say, the craft is no longer manned, and it dumps down. That's where you get this debris field. It comes up, it circles around, right, and then comes down. I believe you said it's thought on a highway of some kind. Is that the working hypothesis that leads us to this site?
Nobody knows. This site was the place where Jesse Marcel said it happened. This is the site that Bill Brazel said it happened. This is the site that a number of military people that actually went out there to clean it up. That's the site they said it was. So that's the thing on that. There is no working hypothesis as to what happened. There's only speculation. Some people said they saw 2 objects flying around, and they might have crashed into each other. Some people said, oh, it was our super powerful radar. Our radar in the early days was really strong. That radar may have interfered with their navigation. There's another story out there and this one is very intriguing too, that we snagged an EM weapon early on from the Germans, mounted it in a jet aircraft, and that jet flew from Clovis out here and shot the thing down with it. That's a cool story. Only because you never know that they didn't want that thing flying around here in Roswell because we had nuclear weapons here. They didn't know what it was. They wanted to shoot it down. They tried. They missed. So they brought this top secret weapon that they stole from the Germans. There's a myriad of stories about how this thing, some say it was struck by a lightning bolt, and there's just lots of stories behind this. Nobody knows. We weren't there, we don't have enough witnesses. There's all kinds of things about flashes on radar screens, two objects. That two object thing keeps popping up. I don't know whether to believe it or not. There is no working hypothesis. We just know that, number one, the people that were there, the eyewitnesses, tell us this is where it went down. It was weird material that was found out there, and the government hushed it up as fast as possible. And that's all. The rest of it is sheer speculation. That's all it is.
I was intrigued though by your comment. First time I've ever heard this, you know, the part about how it comes down and how it goes up like this.
Yes.
And then I think the statement was it then goes over basic.
Well, that's the drone that did that. The craft itself, known fact that there are two locations, all right? One of them is the debris field where this stuff was scattered all over the place, where it had its initial failure of whatever happened to it. The thing basically left a galley mark like it was trying to land, like a controlled landing, but then it basically lifted off again and hit somewhere fairly close to the highway 285, because there is evidence that the government cordoned off the whole section of 285.
And is that this debris field?
No, that second site has never been
That's a
found.
different matter.
We're still looking for it. It's a matter, it's on private land. It's been narrowed down to maybe about a square mile area, actually much less than that. It hasn't been located yet. Maybe this summer. I'm trying to work on getting permission from the rancher to get out there, and if they give permission, which is kind of a long drawn out process because I don't even know who it is. The BLM does, and the archaeologists that work for the BLM had been out to the site with Don Schmidt early on, in fact, in a helicopter, if I remember correctly, kind of flying over. So I'm trying to get permission. I was lucky enough to have Don tell me where it is. The archaeologist knows me, he's a friend, so we're working together to try to get permission because I want to go out there and I want to do my work. I want to see if I can figure out where it is.
Now, are these dead bodies that they allegedly recovered?
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter. It hit, they know they hit one.
From where it skipped out, and then they dropped down on the mountain or on the hill?
It's my understanding.
One more time.
Whether they jump or.
I have no idea, so this is all speculation. I just know that there were some dead ones and there was a live one. That's all I
That
know.
craft was tore apart so bad that they came out of it. There would have to be debris somewhere in that area.
Yeah, that was the hypothesis I was just advancing.
I've looked.
Yeah. You like cracking the egg, you see
Right.
a little bit, and it's like a car crash, you know, we'll get people over here and the vehicle's way back over here. And
This is a good
ping-pong-
2.5 miles away where some of the bodies were found. And like I said, I haven't really studied that part because I deal in physical touchy-feely stuff. I can't touch the aliens, I haven't seen them and I don't know. I just read the story and try to use some good science to figure. I've searched the area where the bodies are. Ben Hansen from Factor Fake was with me. We did a lot of looking in that area. We found nothing.
That's where you found the nails, right?
No, those nails were found back at that big sinkhole where all the debris was found. Yes, ma'am.
I was born 3 weeks after the aliens crashed.
Okay.
My dad was a walker, but he passed away before all this came back out to be talked about again. But I did have friends that I graduated with in school, and one of them told me his grandfather went with a mortician
Glenn
out
Dennis, yeah.
out to the site to pick up bodies, and another grandfather of another lady that I went to school with, her grandfather went, he had the only lowboy trailer in the area.
There's a lowboy trailer thing too.
There's no lowboy trailer needed for a crashed weather balloon.
This is very true.
All 3 of those men were Masons, and no, they didn't speak of anything until after whoever brought it back out into the topic of conversation in the 80s. But there were bodies.
That's my understanding.
There was a trailer that wasn't needed for a weather balloon.
That's right. And I think that's actually what they loaded on at not the debris field, but that second crash site, which is why I want to look and find the exact location as best I can and then look at the old aerial photographs. in order to get a lowboy trailer in there, it's gonna leave some marks. They had to cut a trail sometime to get that, over that kind of terrain.
Are you
So
saying that's the Corn Ranch?
No, it is not on the Corn Ranch, as far as I know. This is neat information, and I've heard this before from a couple of sources, including a Hispanic lady that told me she was camped outside during the 4th of July kind of weekend out in the mountains there by, not too far from the debris field. If you look towards the west, there's some hills out there that are covered with pine trees. She said that she saw the craft come in, and she says it was really low to the ground, and she says the thing was at least 100 feet across.
Wow.
I don't know, so it was big, if you want to believe her story. Nobody's ever talked to her. She just came up to me and she says, she was really old. She says, I was camped out up there, and she says, I saw that thing come in, it was a good 100 feet across. She says, we didn't see it go down, but she says, we watched that thing come right across she says it flew like you could see it off in the distance. She says, it was big when it came in. So
I'd like
she
to
described it
talk
as
about
a
it.
saucer, so it was kind of neat. And I've heard that same 100-foot mark from several people. So it was big, so whatever happened to it, it was in trouble, but that's good. I like that story. Anybody else?
I
Yes,
just
sir.
have one cute little story to tell you that you will enjoy. I'm from Miami, Florida. What happened in the early 70s, Richard Nixon called his friend Jackie Gleason and said, I'm going to take you somewhere you've never been before. It's going to blow your mind. So what happened is Nixon got his security guards in his limousine, picked up Jackie Gleason, and they drove down to Homestead Air Force Base. There was an area in a hangar under super heavy security guard. Okay, Nixon and Jackie Gleason went in there. There were 2 live aliens in there that Jackie Gleason saw. He was sworn not to talk about it. For the next 2 weeks, he was sequestered in his house. He couldn't talk, he couldn't...
Jackie
eat.
Gleason was really big into UFOs.
Well, the funny thing is, no one knew if this story was true or not. Finally, after he passed away, his wife, Mary, said it was an absolutely true story.
Wow, neat story.
So that's, would you like to know that one?
Yeah, and that was what year was
In the
it?
70s, when
You know-
because Nixon was, Gleason was like...
Interesting thing, because my mom and dad were working, they were musicians, and they were playing at one of the beach bars down in the Florida Keys. And on their way home, and I was a teenager at the time, they told me about a very interesting story when they came in. This was in the early 70s, mid 70s, early 70s, or whatever. When they came home, they said, "We got to tell you what we saw right there at the Bay Honda Bridge." That's what it's called, Bay Honda, on the way down to Key West. So right there at the Bay Honda Bridge, they said that there was this triangular craft, didn't make any noise, that flew right over the top of Bay Honda Bridge. And my mom and dad said they saw it clearly. They didn't have a camera. They said it was an incredible sight. People were like stopping and looking at this thing, and went right over the top of Bay Honda Bridge, triangular with lights, around the edge. And he said it was not an aircraft. It was something we have never ever seen before. Weird stories like this. Anybody else before I call it quits? I've run way over, which is okay. Luckily, I didn't have anybody after me today. So.
We gave up the body snatchers, wanted the Roswell Mall to see you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, so yeah, we did a good